Hello everyone, welcome to the FantasyLabrats. In this stream, we're going to be talking about Week 7. In particular, we will be talking about the late games. I am Nani. I'm joined by Oven Mitts and Square. And we're going to go ahead and get started in talking about the games. First off, just any injury updates you guys want to talk about? Any big notables that we didn't really get
Yeah.
to discuss about the early games even?
Oh, for the early games?
Yeah.
Off the top of my head, I can't think of any. I know Antonio Gates is big news, but that's part of the late games.
Yeah, nothing comes to my head.
Okay. That's it. Then we'll just go ahead and get started with the talking about the games then. So for the first game we'll talk about is Oakland at San Diego. Oakland is at 2-3 versus San Diego 2-4. This is at San Diego and the line is -3.5. It did open up at -5 originally.
Yeah, so for this game, the over-under is 47, so it's a little bit high, so you're kind of going to be looking at this game and wanting some of the players on either side. Obviously, the big names for San Diego are Keenan Allen, Antonio Gates, and Phillip Rivers. Now they're really banged up right now. I know Keenan Allen, after getting 14 targets in the last game and like blowing out the water in a GPP, even though nobody owned him, Keenan Allen hurt his hip, and even though he's saying that he's healthy and that he doesn't even feel any pain in his hip, it is still a little bit of cause for pause because the feel I have about a hip injury is the same feel I have for the Randall Cobb injury on his shoulder. This is something where if you get hit the wrong way, you're all of a sudden not a factor in the game anymore. So I feel like even though Keenan Allen at 8,100 could have some value, particularly in a PPR, he's a little bit risky of a play, and he's someone that I'm staying away from. Um, as we mentioned, Antonio Gates is like a huge chalk play, and for good reason. Oakland is awful against the tight end position unless you're Owen Daniels. If you're Owen Daniels, you just get a 0 no matter who you're playing. But if you're Antonio Gates, who's coming off a 16 target performance, then this is sort of where you feast against a terrible tight end defense. But he just showed up with a sprained MCL. He's missed the last 3 practices now. And when you miss the last practice before the game, it's usually a really, really bad sign for uh, your game day availability. So, and another hard thing about this is that he is a 4 o'clock start. So if we don't find out until, after the early games, after the lineups have locked, that Antonio Gates is out, you can't switch him out on Fanduel. So I think it may be better in this case where it really seems like he's probably going to miss or at least be limited in snaps to go somewhere else. Um, Within the same team, even Ladarius Green is involved in the offense even when Antonio Gates is there. He caught a touchdown last week, and he's a pretty good tight end anyway. So if Antonio Gates is out, I think Ladarius Green at 5,100 is good value. Also, we have Stevie Johnson back in the mix who plays the slot, which is another vulnerability of the Raiders' defense. And Stevie Johnson is a value at 5,700. So I'm okay with him. As far as the running game goes, I'm not touching anyone. Like, no one. Melvin Gordon, no. I want nothing to do with him. He's fumbled in 4 of the last 5 games. He gets stopped behind the line of scrimmage way too much. I think eventually this season his time will come because the offensive line of the Chargers is getting stronger, but I don't see it being in this game. So I want nothing to do with the run game. Because we know that the Chargers are going to pass like they have been because they have no run game. I really like Phillip Rivers. He's a big chalk play in the Thursday tournaments. He was something like 18% owned, and it's only going to go up.
Mm-hmm.
He can be throwing in this game to Keenan Allen, Antonio Gates if he plays. You have the backup tight end. You have Stevie Johnson, Malcolm Floyd, Woodhead. There's so many options that it's kind of ridiculous to not think about playing Phillip Rivers at 8,000. So I really like Phillip Rivers. Do you guys have any counterplays to those, or are you leaning on someone that I didn't mention?
So
Um,
I was thinking about.
Go ahead.
Oh,
Sorry.
go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Go ahead, because I need to look something up anyway.
Okay. For me, I really like this game in terms of the passing game. The Oakland is ranked dead last against the pass. And San Diego has been on fire in terms of passing the ball. Um, I mean, we've all seen when Antonio Gates go off. He's been sort of taking advantage of the fact that Stevie Johnson's been missing. Stevie Johnson's been running in the middle of the field, and that's where Antonio Gates likes to play. Um, And Johnson was getting about 7 targets before he got injured. Gates took over, took those 7 targets, and took even more targets, where he's averaging 14 targets a game, which is insane for a tight end. Um, so if Gates is out, I also agree. Like if he doesn't play or he's not 100%, Ladarius Green is a really good play. I really like Ladarius Green. Even with all the injuries and all like the Antonio Gates coming back, he's still averaging 6 targets a game, regardless of the situation. So if Antonio Gates is out, this could bode well for him. This is the Raiders too. This is don't forget, we all endorse the Raiders tight end logic, right? Owen Daniels threw up a stinker, but we don't just all of a sudden forget that, right? So I think the Raiders tight end logic stands here. You play Ladarius Green or Gates if he's not injured. But me, I personally like Ladarius Green in this situation just because he is going to get play regardless of the situation with Gates and Stevie Johnson. Um, Keenan Allen, I think I also agree. With the injury, he's a little more scary to play. But don't take that as you still consider him for tourney play, especially. He's seeing an insane amount of targets. And in only three of the games, he's gotten over double-digit targets. He's catching when he gets the double-digit targets. He's catching the double-digit targets. So he's going insane right now. So it's hard to like really fade the guy.
So
But
if we don't know by 1 p.m. if he's out, what are you doing? Are you playing Ladarius? Are you just rolling Gates out and risking the fact that you have a 0
In DFS.
for Ladarius or who?
for Gates?
Keenan
If Gates
Allen.
is out.
Oh.
Gates,
Right,
if Gates
right
is
now,
out.
for me, I'm playing Ladarius in both in
Okay,
any
so you're just
situation.
you're assuming Gates is out.
Yeah, if Gates is out, it's fine. Even if he's in, I'm still okay playing him. He's still getting 6 targets a game. He's still getting two red zone targets. Ladarius Green is still a good play. So I'm okay either way. If Gates is out, I think he gets a bump in value. He gets more value in terms of Gates being gone.
Yeah, this is
Um,
one of those rare cases where even if Gates plays, Ladarius still holds some value.
yeah, I think so. And if Keenan's, I think Keenan's also like a good tourney play. Like I agree with you. He is a little bit more scary. So those are my feelings for that game. But I think you do want a piece of this because Oakland is so bad against the pass. This is a good over under. I think you do want to have at least 1 or 2 players from this game on San Diego side.
Yep. I totally agree with the Ladarius Green play. Even when they have 2 tight ends, they roll them out. They play 2 tight ends, and Philip Rivers likes to throw them. So I like those 2. If you maybe not for DFS play, but if you're looking for if you're desperate for a flex, I think Inman might get a little bump in play, especially with a little bit of a banged up Keenan Allen, and I think Stevie Johnson is just coming back might not play, and so is Floyd and Jacoby Jones. So there are a lot of banged up wide receivers, and I think Inman was getting a little more targets, even in the end zone. He got a touchdown this past week, so I think he might be a desperate flex play, but maybe not DFS.
So what I'm hearing from all of this though is that we all like Philip Rivers because he has so many
Oh
weapons.
yeah. Oh
But
yeah.
picking the weapons is the hard part, right?
Oh yeah.
Right.
So we're all on the tight end. We're a little bit scared of the extraneous receivers, and we are off the run game.
Yeah.
Unless
We'll
you're
see.
like going for a Danny Woodhead, like blow up 2 touchdown pass, like receiving touchdown.
Yeah, I think that's for tourneys. You can still try to sneak Woodhead in there, but we haven't seen like a huge game from him. I don't think in a while now. And they are still trying to integrate Woodhead into Melvin Gordon into the passing game. So I'm a little bit scared of Woodhead. So anyway, let's move on to the Oakland side of the ball. So this is a little bit opposite of the San Diego. So in San Diego will be pass because the weakness of Oakland is the pass. For Oakland facing the San Diego defense, it's the complete opposite. The San Diego defense is not allowing the primary pass catchers on the opposing teams to get over 50 yards. On the top of that, they're not allowing very many receptions. So I have the numbers on the total receptions allowed by the San Diego defense over the season. So we have 7 receptions allowed, 6, 9, 13, 6, and 8. And those are not for individual players. Those are for an entire team. And the teams included in those numbers are Pittsburgh, a throwing team, Green Bay, a throwing team, and Cincinnati, which has become a throwing team. And they're limiting these passing games. So that makes me really, really scared to play the Oakland pass offense and Derek Carr, who's part of the passing offense. You guys can see my cat back there chilling. So if you're not attacking San Diego in the pass, which I think that they will not be, they will be running the ball, which is the San Diego extreme weakness. They are terrible against the run. And Latavius Murray is a value play on FanDuel. He's at about $7,000. And if you're looking for a way to pivot off of Freeman or Gurley or Le'Veon, I think Latavius Murray is a way to do that. The only problem is that sometimes game flow screws with Latavius Murray. You know, we thought at the start of the season he was this like game script proof player. But as we've seen, they're okay benching him and rolling with Marcel Reese. So I see high upside, but I also see the possibility of like 2 or 3 points, and that sort of scares me away from playing him in cash and making him strictly a tournament play. Like I said, he is value though. He's around guys like Dion Lewis who are injured and in a bad matchup, Blount in a bad matchup, Joseph Randall in a bad situation, and Doug Martin, who last time we all agreed that we don't really believe in. So if you do go down in price from the typical guys this week, Latavius Murray is one of those options. And versus the San Diego run defense, which let James Starks go crazy last week, James Starks, like really, I think that there's opportunity here. It's just there's a little bit of risk.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. San Diego, they are ranked 29th against the run. They're allowing an average of 5.4 yards per carry, which is like the highest in the league. Murray, I understand that he has that risk where he's getting benched, he's getting injured. He is coming off a bye, and he might, if you believe it, he could have been injured, and he's coming off a bye, so he's had time to rest. Um, so this might be a good situation for him. He's even when he's been benched, he's still getting 17 touches a game. So that's sort of his floor. He's going to get 17 touches in some way, and given the fact that they're allowing 5.4 yards per carry, that's a good situation to really get a lot of yards, and if not a touchdown, at least one or two. You would hope. So I really like Murray in this situation. Um, I would even venture to say he might be a potential cash play for me.
Wow.
So yeah, I think for his value, I think it's really good. And given the scenario where he's against the San Diego run defense, sure, I think he's a fine play.
Yeah, I can see it, but just strictly in tourneys.
Yeah.
For me anyway. In terms of the passing game, like I said, I'm staying away from it just because the Chargers have proven that they are
Yeah.
for like really good at stopping the pass. But if I am looking at anybody, it's Michael Crabtree. He's 5,900 as opposed to Amari Cooper, who's 7,300. And their stats, if you look at them, are mirrored almost. You know, Amari Cooper has more big play potential, so he has more overall yards. But Crabtree has more overall targets. He has just a, Amari Cooper has 2 TDs, Crabtree has 1. And in terms of throwing downfield, they both have about the same amount of catches past the 20-yard throws. So I think Crabtree is reasonable at the price point. I would not touch Amari Cooper. He's too expensive given the matchup. So that's what I think of the pass game. And I think that generally, even in tournaments, I'm staying off of it.
So one thing I saw in terms of the overall game flow, I saw that the line was moving just a little bit. Even though the public is on San Diego, they're giving points to Oakland, taking away points from Oakland. So I thought that was interesting, and no real injury reports from either team, right?
Yeah, I think one weird thing about this is that we've watched San Diego suck. Like they went to Pittsburgh, or actually they were at home, and Pittsburgh pretty much came there. It wasn't even really a home field advantage. They were cheering for the Steelers more at the San Diego home field, but they lost to Michael Vick led Steelers, which was bad. And then they had a chance to come back against the Green Bay Packers. Crappers. Wow, the Green Bay Packers.
Wow.
Anything but.
Yeah, right. They made it to the 2-yard line and couldn't punch it in. So it's just like I don't think at this point San Diego should be giving anybody points. And I think that maybe sharp bettors are seeing that, knowing Oakland's on a short week or coming off a bye. And I think there's a spot here if you're betting to take Oakland because San Diego really hasn't proven that they should be the favorite in any matchup.
Interesting.
Yeah. So one of the things too I wanted to add, we were talking about this whole game. I thought an interesting stat was that Oakland defense is they're allowing 17 points per game to opposing quarterbacks. So that sort of goes along with our logic that we like Philip Rivers and the whole passing offense in general for the San Diego Chargers. So the next game we'll talk about is Dallas at New York Giants. Dallas is 2-3 versus the Giants, who are 3-3. The Giants are currently at -3.5, even though the line opened at -5 Giants.
Yeah, the Giants had a crappy game. Like they on Monday, they looked horrible. They only got the one touchdown to Odell. I think it was in the first half, and after that they got shut down. Um, and they just looked horrible. Rashad Jennings and Shane Vereen got almost no play. Well, they got play, they just didn't produce. I think the line movement might be because of that, but also um, they're having a short recovery week, so they played Monday, but now so they don't have that much time to prepare. Whereas Dallas is coming off of a bye, and also they're making a key change in personnel, so they're transitioning out of the Whedon, the conservative Whedon that never threw bombers, and then going to Matt Castle, who's a veteran quarterback, who has the potential to uh, give targets. Des Bryant's not playing, but targets like Des Bryant a better chance. And so for that reason, maybe the line movement is leaning in favor of Dallas, and and kind of because of this, I like a lot of the Dallas wide receivers. So first of all, I like Terrence Williams here. I think he has a good matchup, and New York Giants are, have been bad against the pass. Yeah, so the Giants are pretty decent against the run and bad against the pass. So I'm gonna fade the Dallas running backs, and think about plays like Terrence Williams, depending on the price point. I think he's priced right around the 7,000, 6,000 range.
Terrence Williams is priced at 5,900.
5,900. So I think he has great upside in this, especially in this matchup. And I think the over under is at 46. And the Giants, it's just not very intimidating defensively against the wide receivers. So I am going to probably look to put Terrence Williams into my lineups. And yeah, so Wheaton is most likely out. And the last time they played each other in Dallas. Wheaton had 2 touchdowns against them, and we have a lot of different personnel since then. So I don't think I'm gonna trust anyone else except for Terrence Williams here. And on the Giants side, the Dallas Cowboys give up the most points to running backs in PPR formats, and this is not because they allow a lot of run yardage, but because they allow a lot of receiving yardage to running backs. And because of this, I am kind of thinking about playing Shane Vereen, who's kind of the passing. He's the running back during pass plays, and I've seen the New York Giants run Vereen in the slot and go deep, and I think Eli is perfectly capable of hitting him in the right situation. So I think I might favor Shane Vereen over Rashad Jennings in this particular matchup. And for Odell, obviously, Odell has a good matchup as well. But because the Giants, if you look at their lineup, they don't have depth. And so if you had 2 weeks to prepare for the game against the Giants, they're going to look to shut down, especially Odell. So, and Odell's a little banged up too. So I'm not sure, even though he has a good matchup, I'm not sure how good of a play he is. Some people are saying he's going to be the top 3 receiver this week because of the matchup. But I am going to stay away and choose someone else, especially at his price point.
Yeah, so I like your call on Vereen. The Cowboys defense is pretty weak to to running, catching / running backs. And I have noticed a trend that every other week is either a Rashad Jennings or a Vereen week. And last week they tried to use Rashad Jennings and that didn't work, which would lead you to think that, maybe Vereen. Also, like you mentioned, the line movement is kind of weird and it's suggesting that there's a possibility that maybe Odell's out. And if Odell is out, that means that the Giants pretty much have no weapons. And when we saw Odell go out 2 games ago, they really leaned on Vereen. And in my opinion, they have the best screen plays in the league. Just the offensive linemen are always out in front of them, and they can get like 10 yards on every one of these. So Vereen's a decent call. I'm scared of Odell, obviously, just because it's a late game. He might play, he might not play. And then even if he does play, he's the type of guy who's, I mentioned last time, when you have a hamstring injury and your primary weapon is speed, it's a really scary combination mid-game. You're probably going to get hurt. And I think that's what we saw in this last game where he was effective in the first half and not effective at all in the second half. As for the Cowboys, I'm not playing any of them. There's question marks on all of the running backs. Like we might see Christian Michael. We might not see Christian Michael. At the start of the week, they were like, we're going to unleash the beast. And then today and then yesterday, there was a little bit of like, maybe we won't unleash the beast. And then today it was like completely smashed out. Christian Michael's like, I don't even know if I'm going to get the ball. So Christian Michael's a question mark. Randall, if Christian Michael is involved, that definitely kills Randall's value. And I just think Terrence Williams is bad. I don't care how bad the defense is. I just don't like Terrence Williams at all. And if Des Bryant comes back, again, he's a risk. He could just leave. So I'm just not touching this offense at all. And Matt Castle heading it makes it even stronger of a reason to avoid.
I mean, the fact that the Giants are 31st against the pass doesn't entice you at all.
No, not at all.
They're 31st against the pass. They've allowed 300 yards per game. Nothing? Still nothing?
Terrence Williams gets 0.
Yeah.
They played the Patriots and they were behind the whole game. And Terrence Williams ended that game with 0.
But now Castle's here.
That's because Whedon.
If you're going to tell me there's a drastic difference between Whedon and Castle,
yeah,
I have to leave the show.
All right, see ya.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I understand Matt Castle can throw downfield, but Matt Castle on the Chiefs was throwing interceptions constantly because of that. And I think Whedon is more to the opposite. Like he's throwing short passes and trying to avoid interceptions. Both guys suck. Terrence Williams is not a good football player. And I don't see a world where he makes himself relevant in cash, especially, but in tournaments to get value out of him, I think you need at least a touchdown and like 70 to 80 yards. And I just don't see that happening.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Castle's career average is about 200 yards, and he's always been known as a game manager. So to me, I always think he's very similar to Alex Smith. And in this scenario, I agree. I'm not endorsing Matt Castle at all. But I do think that Terrence Williams might have some potential, at least in the tourney play, where he's a dart, where he could get some good amount of yardage. Because Castle can deliver him the ball, he might be able to find the end zone, if not get a ton of yards. So I think Williams is a potential tourney play, and I totally agree he's not a cash play at all. Even at his price point, I'm not interested at all with him.
Right, he's a GPP play,
Yeah.
and who's not a GPP play?
Yeah.
Honestly, and are you guys playing him?
For 5,900,
I might, yeah.
I might, yeah.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
5,900.
I guess we're going to be watching the games together, and if he catches the touchdown, my face is going to be so red.
Yeah, I think at 5,900, it's a worthwhile look. But yeah,
I think DMC might get more play. I think he got a lot of receiving targets last time, and I think this might be a trend where they use Rendell as their RB1 and then using DMC as the pass runner.
Yeah, I was on DMC when they, declared him as the passing down back after Dunbar's injury. But
Yeah.
and it was good for PPR purposes. He caught a lot of passes, didn't get a lot of yards, but he ended up with something like 15 points or something. So that's obviously nice. But the introduction of Christian Michael and the fact that we have no idea what role he plays,
no.
I think makes it a little bit of a warning sign. And there's also the possibility that we get the first drive with Christian Michael and they go 80 yards and a touchdown. And then Christian Michael's the running back the rest of the game. So it's too risky and there's not enough upside on McFadden dividing the carries by 3.
Yeah.
It's just something you stay away from. Wait and see.
Just avoid altogether. I
Yeah.
agree.
The only tourney person that I would consider on the running game is Christian Michael, because we all know like he's got these insane metrics and he's like fast, he can juke, he's like all these abilities. He just has a hard time remembering the playbook, so people keep kicking him off his team. When we finally see him play, there is a chance for an explosion. I just don't think I'm going to be on him when it happens, and I'll play him in the next game.
So I mean, you guys were talking about the Giants earlier. I felt like you guys were basically assuming that there's a good sign that Odell's not going to play. If he does play, how does that does that change your guys' opinions about any of the players, any of the other players?
All it does for me is make me want to play Odell.
Yeah.
But I'm not playing him because of the injury risk. Let me put it this way. With Odell becomes playable.
Yeah.
Without Odell, nobody is playable. Maybe a little bit of Vereen, but even then I don't think I'm doing that.
That's exactly what happens. Like, they don't have any weapons, so
like him out doesn't mean Randall more. Maybe when Cruz comes back, then we have some play there.
Mm-hmm.
If Odell's out, Cruz is now a value. Or maybe if they didn't kick James Jones off their team and send him to Green Bay, we would be picking James Jones up. But they kick James Jones off, and all they have is Ruben Randall. Slow, old, knee-hurting Ruben Randall, who I want nothing of. So if Odell is healthy, he's a good play, but I'm not touching him just because of injury risk.
So I always do this, but whenever I come to a team with no weapons, I always say, I'm probably going to play their kicker. So I might play Josh Brown here.
Yeah, that 1 point last week was so good.
Against Dallas, the first time they played Dallas in the first week, Josh Brown had 4 field goals and 2 extra points. That's pretty sick for a kicker.
Please, the kicker analysis.
Can we,
I know we're on Fanduel, but please.
This is what I do. This is what I bring to the table. Kicker analysis.
I didn't have that stat, so good on you.
Let me see. There's a potential revenge script here.
Oh, is there?
Give me that revenge script.
Dwayne Harris.
Oh, okay.
Dwayne Harris used to be a Cowboy.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Well, he actually was in the last game they played, though.
Yeah.
And I don't think he accounted for much of anything.
I know.
Like, Dwayne Harris, to me, is the same type of player as Terrence Williams, where they're there, but they're not really there.
We're gonna make you eat those words this week.
Well, if I hate every player, I'm gonna eat some words. I haven't liked a player yet.
Yeah. But just throw that out there. Revenge script. Do I like that revenge script? No, I don't. But I'm just throwing that out there this time.
From what I hear, you're saying make a stack of Dwayne Harris, Matt Castle, and the Dallas defense because he's a kick returner. So you can get all sorts of coverage on Dwayne Harris.
Might as well throw in the defense too and just hope for the best, right? No, don't do any of that.
Don't do any of that. Yeah.
Do it.
Kidding around.
Okay. So the next we're talking about is Philadelphia at Carolina. Philadelphia is 3-3. Carolina is 5-0. Very impressive. They are -3 at home. Carolina is.
Yeah, so Philly's coming off a messy game with the Giants, as we saw and we were all forced to watch, where Philly was throwing picks and fumbling the ball, and then the Giants were fumbling the ball and throwing picks, and it was pretty much one of the worst games that I have ever seen in my life. That being said, they won 27-7 somehow, and this is the second game in a row that they've won by a large margin against all odds. So I don't think you can actually count Philly out in this one, even though Carolina is 5-0. I think Carolina's 5-0 is... they beat Seattle. That was surprising to me, but I feel like it's a little bit fluky. I've been saying this about a lot of players. I don't believe in anything. Yeah, I'm like off of everybody. But I do think that they're capable of scoring on Carolina. And I also think that because the Carolina offense tends to be so reliant on Cam to Greg Olsen, the Philly defense, which we saw pretty much hold the Giants to nothing other than the first drive, could actually put a little bit of brakes on the Carolina offense. So I see a defensive game, despite the fact that the over-under is 55. I think maybe it should be somewhere around or sorry, 45. It should be somewhere around 43, 42. And it has actually gone down 1.5 points since the open. So some other people somewhere are also thinking that this game's going to go under. The players to consider on Carolina are obviously Greg Olsen. He's a little bit of a chalk play. A lot of people are going to be on him. In the Thursday matchups, he was 11% owned. Gates was 34% owned, and we're expecting that a lot of those people that are removing Gates from their lineup due to injury are going to shove in a similarly priced Greg Olsen. The Philly defense is actually pretty good against tight ends. They're second best against fantasy, allowing tight ends to score fantasy points. But they haven't really played anybody. They haven't faced Gronk. They haven't faced Martellus Bennett. And I think that because Greg Olsen's sort of the only weapon, he's a fine play. I also like Cam Newton just because the floor for Cam Newton is so very high. He's averaging 10 carries per game and at about 45 yards. And he's averaging 2 to 3 touchdowns, with one of those touchdowns being a rushing touchdown. So if you can ever guarantee me somewhere in the range of 9 points for a quarterback and then everything else on top of that is fluff, I think I'll take it versus a Philly team that's going to be very fast paced. So Cam's going to be seeing a lot more snaps. So I really like Cam this week. Do you guys have any opinions on the Carolina players?
You didn't mention any of the running backs. I think
there's a reason for that.
Yeah, so Jonathan Stewart gets a lot of carries, but if you guys were wondering, I mean, he blew up this past week against Seattle, right? Or yeah.
Yep.
2 touchdowns or 1? I don't remember.
He had 2.
Versus Seattle?
Yeah.
He had 2 last week.
I think he had 2 as well.
I'm gonna look it up. Keep talking.
It's an interesting stat. He does get volume carries every week. He gets like an average of like 16 carries or something like that. And they don't really run any of the other running backs too much, except for I never remember his name. The 2 last name guy.
Ted Ginn Jr.
No, the running back.
Oh,
Cameron
Artis Payne.
Artis Payne, yeah. So he gets like what? He gets the other half or other share of runs.
He got
right?
0 last game.
0 last game.
I would know.
You played him.
I didn't play him.
Greg Olsen had 11 targets, 131 yards, and 1 touchdown.
I think it's Greg Olsen. I agree with you. Maybe Jonathan Stewart, just because of the volume. I'd consider him, but because probably the price point is low as well. But they are playing against Philly.
Philly is 9th against the rush, and they've only allowed 1 rushing touchdown all season. I'm not a fan of Jonathan Stewart.
That's probably right.
I don't think I'm ever going to be a fan of Jonathan Stewart.
Yeah.
He's just not a good running back. And the thing about Jonathan Stewart is that if they get close and Jonathan Stewart gets the touchdown, you're just like, what the hell? Like, that should have been Cam. It's always Cam. He's just jumping over the piles or running to the left or running to the right, and little quarterback sneaks. And if Jonathan Stewart gets the ball, it's sort of like, what are you guys doing? So I'm never going to be playing Jonathan Stewart ever, and I think he's always going to be overpriced because he is supposed to be technically a featured back. We do have a comment in the chat that says Greg Olsen only has 2 games where he did anything, and that is true. That he had 1 game with 2 touchdowns a while back, and then this game versus Seattle where he sort of salvaged the game for them with 1 touchdown. Other than that, they had 1 game where Ted Ginn Jr. got 2 touchdowns on 2 catches, that's obviously a fluke because he hasn't done anything since. I think we're leaning on Cam basically carrying the team. That's why he's in the MVP discussion at this point, because he's a one-man team. He's like the LeBron James of the Cavaliers here. And then the defense. And the defense is pretty much...
Kyrie and Kevin Love are...
Oh, come on.
And cringing at your comment, all right?
Well, we can go back to the past Cavs where it was literally just LeBron. And
all right, go ahead with your Cam thing.
Yeah, I think that Cam is pretty much winning these games, and that's why, to me, Cam is a cash and a tourney play. I think Greg Olsen's a little bit overpriced this week. I would either go for Gronk, pay up for Gronk, or go for one of the lower guys. So on Carolina, I like Cam. So for Philadelphia, I'm not playing Bradford. He's too inconsistent. The only team that he really blew up on was Washington. Other than that, he's had mediocre games to terrible games against mediocre defenses. And this Carolina defense is actually really, really good. So it's like you're entering into a dungeon of hell if you're bringing Sam Bradford into Carolina to try to beat that defense. It's just not going to happen. And that also makes it seem like you don't really want any of their their weapons. If I am touching anybody, it's Jordan Matthews. He's the only one still getting targets after they said that they committed to spreading the ball out. He's 6,600, which is value. And in the last matchup between Philadelphia and Carolina, Jordan Matthews' stats were 7 catches on 9 targets, 138 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So it's hard to ignore that stat line the same way it's hard to ignore the Mike Evans stat line from the last podcast. So I think I actually do like in a tourney Jordan Matthews because we're still waiting on that blow-up game, and I think there is potential here for him to burn a team that he's shown that he can burn in the past. The only other option that I think you can consider maybe on the Eagles is Riley Cooper, because they keep throwing bombers to him and they keep throwing to him in the end zone, no matter whether they're caught, dropped, or intercepted. He was a little banged up in the last game, so it scares me off of him, but he is a guy to keep an eye on for tournaments. The running game against Carolina, I'm not touching anybody. Even if they're giving the volume to DeMarco Murray is still not a very good running back. And no matter how much they scheme their offense to get him a running start before he hits the line, is just not a good matchup. And I still I'm not feeling DeMarco Murray in that offensive line. Not like last year anyway with the Cowboys.
He's getting like 20 touches still. I don't know. It's a lot. I'd consider him.
He's getting 25 plus touches a game since
Yeah,
coming
he's
back
getting
from
a
that
lot.
injury that he had.
Yeah, you can give 20 catches to a bad running back against a good defense all you want. I don't really want Murray in this game.
He gets like 1 touchdown.
He
a
did
game,
it
too.
against
I don't
the
know.
Giants, who had like the best rushing defense last week.
Are you guys actually buying into that Giants running defense?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't
If you
know if
actually
I
look
believe.
at the stats.
I don't know if I
believe.
believe the Giants' running defense as much as I believe in Murray being able to produce. I don't know.
I'm not gonna fade Murray. I think he's still okay at his price point. 7,600 is okay. It's not something that's like screaming value, and it's not something that's so overpriced. I'm okay where he's at.
It's
He
really
is-
hard to deny the volume. I believe
Yeah.
that. It's just the
Yeah.
matchup isn't too good for me.
It's a middling defense against him, so it's up to you. I'm not gonna fade him, but I'm not gonna for sure put him in my cash lineups. But tourney's always okay. One thing I had to talk about, and I was about to give this little spiel about it and be like, don't stay away from him, but it's all changed from one little roto. All right, so but
Let's hear it.
I'm gonna tell you guys anyways.
Alright,
So the stat I had was that Carolina, they have one cornerback. His name is Josh Norman, who is like a shutdown corner this year, at least so
Okay.
far.
You got me so far.
So Carolina's ranked 5th against the pass, and it's mostly because of this guy. He's held the WR1s on the opposite team. He's held Allen Robinson to 27 yards. He's held DeAndre Hopkins, right? Ooh, DeAndre Hopkins, everyone loves, to 53 yards. He's held Brandon Cooks to 79 yards. Okay.
Almighty Brandon Cooks.
Wow, more than DeAndre.
Yeah, Mike Evans to 32 yards, and then Doug Baldwin
Mike
for
Evans
32 yards or 23 yards.
I mean, these are all
So-
like,
Not Doug Baldwin.
they're all
so-
like bleh.
No, but he's a good corner and he's shutting them down. And up to this point, I was like, oh, he's gonna play against Jordan Matthews. He's gonna shut Jordan Matthews down. But the roto that came out was saying that Jordan Matthews will line up most likely in the slot, and the only time he'll see Josh Norman is when they're in 2 receiver sets. So that bodes good news. That is good news for Jordan Matthews, but it sucks for whoever is lining up outside against this guy.
Josh Huff, the Magic Dragon, man.
Josh Huff.
So just to throw that out there, I had that piece just for Jordan Matthews, but now it's for whoever's lining up against him.
You know what?
So it's
I
all
don't
systems
like?
go on Jordan Matthews. That's what I'm saying.
No. Let me slow the brakes down a little bit. Jordan Matthews, he gets the targets, but he's a fumble machine. And Carolina defense is averaging 2.7 turnovers a game.
Yeah.
And these aren't interceptions, these are fumbles. So mostly fumbles. There are a couple interceptions, but I don't know. Jordan Matthews, he has the grabbing hands. He does not like to hold the ball well.
It's a very high variability stat to say a receiver fumbles a lot.
Yeah.
So that's not gonna sway me off of my lover man
Someone
Jordan
has to do
Matthews
it.
this week.
I played Jordan Matthews 4 weeks in a row, man.
I know you're on Mike Evans too, and I'm playing Mike Evans too. This is the week.
No.
So the last game we'll discuss
Oh, we got to
is
update now. Des Bryant did not make the trip to New York today. Probably not going to play. He has not been ruled out officially yet.
is that a surprise to anyone really?
No.
No.
That's why we're playing T-Will.
No, we're not.
All right. The next game, the last game. This is a really short one. Baltimore at Arizona. Baltimore is 1-5 against Arizona, who are now 4-2. Arizona opened at -7.5, and now they're -10.
Yeah, it's a pretty straight, like the line movement makes sense to me. Arizona is high-powered offense. They had one bad game last week. Um, high-powered offense. Baltimore,
Hmm?
their offense is shaky. Their
Maybe.
defense is shaky as well. And I think, Carson Palmer this year, he's losing a little bit of the traction that he had in the beginning of the season. But he's still got so many weapons that he can throw to. He has Fitz, Floyd, uh, John Brown. I always get that mixed up.
There's too
John
many
Brown,
Browns in the league, man.
John Brown. They got Chris Johnson, David Johnson, and then Andre Ellington. They have too many good offensive players for Carson Palmer. And so I see Arizona doing very well in this game. I did see that John Brown is questionable because he got banged up last game and then stopped. I think they limited his play afterwards, and now he didn't practice, so he's downgraded a little in terms of the availability, which makes Fitz, who is a high public play, lots of people play him, probably going to be more high owned. So I might fade Fitz just a little bit because of the ownage, the high public ownage, and play Floyd, whose targets will definitely increase if John Brown is out, but has been being more targeted by Carson Palmer, and he gets less attention from the defense as is right now. So if John Brown is out, I would look to play Floyd, especially in this matchup where Baltimore is good against the run and bad against the pass. So even Fitz, I might have to play just in case, but just if I don't find another wide receiver I really like, but I'm gonna stay away from Fitz probably, unless I, you know, I don't want to play Floyd for some whatever reason. Um, on the other side, so Arizona did play bad against the Steelers, who's not known for their defensive efforts this season, but actually the Steelers defense is getting a lot better. So in the last couple weeks, Steelers defense has been turning it up. So I think Arizona having a bad game against them is not a credit to how their offense looked, but how good the Steelers defense was. So overall, as a team, I'm still high on them. I still think they're going to do well in this game, especially. I'm going to stay away from all the runners on Arizona just because there are too many mouths to feed. Chris Johnson will get the yards, but red zone, David Johnson, and then sometimes Andrea Ellington gets into the mix, and they're all they all get to play, so I'm gonna fade all of them for tourney style DFS. But for Baltimore, Steve Smith will have a decent game. And in terms of game flow, Baltimore is probably gonna be behind and playing catch up. So Steve Smith will get the targets and probably the yards too. So he's an option.
You're not scared that Patrick Peterson will most likely play
Yeah,
against them?
yeah. So that was my next thing. So unless Steve Smith Senior gets like touchdowns, he's not going to produce the DFS relevant numbers, which makes me believe that uh, Forsett is probably the better play if you're looking to play someone on Baltimore. Forsett gets most of all the runs, and he's getting passed to now, so he's going to be a good option even if Steve Smith Senior has a good game. I think. So I'm high on Forsett this week again, especially in PPR format. I think he's going to get the volume of the runs and the passes as well. And I think I don't know about the quarterbacks. Carson Palmer is the highest owned quarterback in the Thursday league, so for that reason, I'm probably going to stay away. And Baltimore, Joe Flacco, unless he gets 2 rushing touchdowns, I'm going to stay away from him as well. So I'm going to stay away because he's probably not going to do that again.
Yeah, Arizona's ranked ninth against the pass, and they've allowed 9 touchdowns, but they have a league-leading 11 interceptions. So this is a game where if Flacco wants to throw downfield, there's a high chance that he'll get intercepted by the good corners of Arizona. So that will hurt his value, right? So something to stay away from. I don't like Flacco in this scenario, and I also don't like Steve Smith. I do agree with you that Forsett will have some play, and he's a good target to look for. But other than that, I'm not too big on a fan of the Baltimore offense.
Yeah, so for me, for the Cardinals, I think Malcolm Floyd is an
Michael.
elite play.
Michael.
I have an echo?
Michael.
Michael
Oh,
Floyd.
what did I say, Malcolm?
Malcolm's on
San
San
Diego.
Diego.
The crazy thing about this is that Michael Floyd is
Browns
the better
Floyd.
play, and Malcolm Floyd actually costs 500 more. The point here is that Michael Floyd is extreme value at 4,900.
Oh yeah, I love him.
And that's if John Brown is playing. And he missed
Yeah.
this last practice again with the hamstring. And like I said, fast players with hamstring issues it's not a good combination. So he could leave the game if he plays, most likely doesn't play since he missed the last practice. So Michael Floyd at 4,900 is a steal and should be in cash lineups and tourney lineups.
Oh yeah.
Specifically given the fact that last week he was targeted in the red zone several times. He got 1 touchdown. He had another touchdown called back, and there was a faulty penalty. So Michael Floyd is their clear go-to guy in the end zone now that he's back and healthy. So I really, really like Michael Floyd. I'm staying away from Fitz. I think Fitz will have a fine game. It's just the ownership. He's the #1 owned wide receiver. So I don't see that he's that much different than some of the other guys. So I'm sort of staying away from Fitz. I do think that Carson Palmer is a play in cash. He is one of the most owned. I think it's him and Phillip Rivers at the top, and you sort of have to choose which guy you think will have the better game. But I think both guys are totally viable in cash. As far as the running game goes, I'm not playing any of these guys because if it's a 3-man committee, like Square said. But if I am taking a guy, it's Chris Johnson. This just seems like a game where Arizona is going to get ahead, and the Baltimore defense is bad at everything, stopping the pass and stopping the run. So I think Chris Johnson probably has a heyday, and in garbage time, they still roll with Chris Johnson. So I kind of like the odds of Chris Johnson breaking a couple 40-yarders and possibly getting into the end zone. For the Baltimore side, I know we don't like Steve Smith, but it seems like when we don't like Steve Smith, that's when Steve Smith goes crazy, right? Against the Bengals, nobody touched Steve Smith.
No.
Like, it was a terrible
For
matchup.
me.
And then he ended up with like 3 touchdowns or 2 touchdowns. He had like 30 some points. And it's week in and week out. We keep doubting him, and then he's getting a ton of points. So I know Patrick Peterson's guarding him, and Patrick Peterson actually matches up really well size-wise versus him. But I'm not going to count him out. The dude somehow still produces, and last week he got a ton of red zone love despite his injury. He's now probably a little bit more healthy than he was before, so I still like Steve Smith, particularly in a game where they're going to be behind and they're going to be throwing. So I actually don't think Steve Smith is that bad of a play.
What about some Kamar Aiken love? Any Kamar Aiken lovers out there?
No.
Would you play Steve Smith in cash?
I'm not touching Steve Smith in cash. I think Steve Smith's purely a tourney play. I would actually play him in a tourney as well because he does have. We've seen it this year.
Oh,
he has like
sure.
25+ point upside. Even last week when he was injured, he made himself relevant.
He's almost 10% owned in Dursley leagues, which is
Given the matchup that people are so heavy on him, but maybe they all see what I see, that somehow he's still making himself relevant in bad matchups through an injury.
some
This
Ravens
is last year. He's going to give it everything he has, which
Yeah.
he has a lot in the tank still, surprisingly.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest player I really like this week is Michael Floyd. I agree with you. 4,900 is just way too much of a steal. Last game he got 8 targets and he caught 4 of them, and like 2 or 3 of them were in the red zone. And so he's a red zone monster. He's going up against Baltimore, who is 27th against the pass. Like, this is a very good scenario where he could have a monster game, especially if John Brown is out. So I really like him in this spot for that price tag. other than that, you guys sort of hit everything else that I mostly agree with.
Yeah. So I have. Do we have a percentage on his ownership?
Floyd, he's not
Michael,
on the list.
he's not on the list. I saw
yeah.
someone post on Twitter that in their Thursday contest,
2.2.
yeah, in their Thursday contest he was 3.3. In this, apparently he's 2.2.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to definitely pick up, particularly with the John Brown news and the fact that sort of most of the podcasts are
Yeah.
talking about him. But despite that, I think you still roll him out. He gives you too much versatility at the other positions, which this week you're going to want to be getting Freeman, Gurley, one of these Phillip Rivers. Like there's expensive places at other positions. So I think he's really nice for lineup building.
All right, I pick Michael Floyd, Terrence Williams. Perfect. Cheap wide receivers.
Yep.
So before we end the thing, one of the questions we got in our last video on YouTube was we'll sort of discuss it a little bit. I think it's a good way to sort of talk about that a little bit. We had a comment that asked us if Landry Jones, Martavis Bryant, and Antonio Brown stack. What do you guys think about that?
Landry Jones, the third string quarterback for Steelers.
Yes.
And then
Martavis
the two.
Bryant and then Antonio Brown.
Is this for a tournament?
He did not specify. He just asked us to see what our opinion
We
on
can
it was.
safely assume it was for a tournament. Nobody's doing that in cash.
We can only hope so.
Why not? Why not? I don't know. I don't think a stack. You choose one of the red receivers, and that's a fine stack.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I don't like the correlation between two wide receivers. When you play two wide receivers on the same team, when one gets a touchdown, the other one isn't, you also have a third string quarterback. So I don't think it's particularly a high likelihood that lineup succeeds. But I'm not telling him not to do it. I think if you're making, 20 lineups, I'm okay with one lineup where you're trying to predict a game script that says Pittsburgh creams Kansas City through the air. We saw Landry Jones, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Landry Jones.
Landry Jones, like, he doesn't have a good history. I know you were telling me the other day he's like ranked 65th among incoming quarterbacks.
Yeah, no, in the preseason when they were playing, out of 56 quarterbacks, he was ranked like 40 or 54th, like one of the worst quarterbacks in the preseason.
Yeah. But if you take the n=1, the sample of one that we have from the last game, he did throw Martavis Bryant a very nice spiral to the end zone, which was a touchdown, and then he did a little 20-yard pass to Martavis Bryant, and then Martavis Bryant did the rest. And on a team where the quarterback doesn't necessarily need to be the playmaker, and you have Antonio Brown who, if we remember that far back, is capable of making plays. Le'Veon Bell, capable of making plays. And as we've now seen, Martavis Bryant, who's very fast, capable of making long, 88-yard touchdown type plays. I don't think you can completely rule out this lineup.
No, I mean it's impossible to
triple
say.
stack.
It's impossible to say you rule it out, but I think it's a high risk stack.
Triple stack. Oh.
Yeah, I mean Landry Jones is a third string quarterback. So hard to trust him. We saw a good performance from him last game. Sure, I take that. Martavis Bryant is a good talent, so it's hard to sit him. I'm playing Martavis Bryant in a lot of leagues. Antonio Brown though, for his price tag, is a little steep. You are just compounding this risk, right? There's already risk playing Landry Jones. Now you're compounding it by putting in Antonio Brown. And something interesting is that Antonio Brown has never caught a touchdown with anyone else besides Big Ben. There's just some chemistry between those two players. And Antonio Brown, since Ben has been out, has not been performing at all. And there's no signs that he had. Like even with Landry Jones, did he get a lot of play from Brown to Brown? No. Like he still gave a dismal line. So you're just hoping for a really big blow up. I'm a fan. Like I love the revenge script here because Todd Haley is the offensive coordinator for the Steelers, and he's going up against the Kansas City Chiefs. So I do like the revenge script in that they'll try to run the score and try to cream Kansas City into the ground. But I don't think this is the right strategy to do so. I'd rather hope on Le'Veon. I'd rather pay the premium for Le'Veon Bell, and just hope that he does well. So I'm not too much of a fan of this stack.
Historically, has there ever been a triple stack with 2 wide receivers and a quarterback that really paid off. Like even if you took
Bortles.
Bortles, Allen
Ooh.
Robinson, and Hearns,
Yeah.
but there's
And
a cap
Julius
on
Thomas. That's like
And-
a
but
quadruple
there's a
stat.
cap. They both the both wide receivers got what 18 and 19
For their
and then
value,
Bortles
which
got
is
a lot.
fine. I mean,
For their
there's,
value, but you're not gonna win DFS tournaments this way.
I think last week you would. If you played Bortles,
If
who
you
got
had
20
Julius Thomas, yes, but I
Yeah.
don't think if you had the 2 wide receivers, no.
I'm gonna give you a reference from way back. There was a football team, I believe their nickname was the greatest show on earth, and it was the Rams. Nowadays you can't think of the Rams, but Kurt Warner.
That's how
was
I
throwing...
think of them.
They're the greatest. They're the worst show on earth. Now they're a steaming pile on earth.
Hey, Gurley's there now. There's hope.
They beat all the good teams. That's what they're good.
Anyway, Kurt Warner was throwing to Isaac Bruce and Torrey Holt, and both those guys were elite level talents and were catching worthwhile numbers. It's just fantasy wasn't really a factor back by then. But you said historically, has there ever been a time where 2 receivers were both relevant? And I think that's one case. I think when Peyton was, Peyton, when he was actually himself, there were games where
These
you
are
could play.
Peyton and Kurt Warner. They're Hall of Famers. This is Landry Jones. Come on.
You just asked for historically.
All right. Go ahead.
And so in that case, it was Peyton in just this recent thing when you had Demarius and Sanders, or you had Demarius and Welker, you could get, and Thomas also. Thomas was around then too, and you could get away with playing a lot of these guys together over a long period of time. Doing this strategy isn't going to have a positive correlation. It's not going to be a good thing, particularly if your quarterback is Landry Jones. But if you're making a ton of lineups and the matchup is good and you have really good skilled players, I don't think it's as bad as you guys are saying.
Is this at Casey or?
It is at KC. Yeah, that was the only thing. I saw the comment and I was like, I'm actually not that mad at it. But then when you consider they're at KC, it's a really shaky.
It's a fun thought. It's
Yeah.
a fun thought for sure.
Thank you for the question.
So before we end the stream, I think we'll continue the tradition and ask you guys to choose a player under 5K.
Can I pick first?
No, we cannot choose Michael Floyd.
No.
He's out of the equation because we all like him and we endorsed him already. It needs to be someone else, someone sneaky.
Okay, give me a second. I gotta look this up.
I need to look too. Give me a second.
I need to look as well. Cue the elevator.
We all had Michael Floyd pegged, right?
I know. We really like him.
I don't have one yet, but there is someone that's outside the 5K range that I do want to mention.
Does it have to be? Are we playing positions like wide receiver position or something, or anyone?
I think anyone.
Anyone under 5K, if you can. Just don't choose a defense or kicker. But a player I really like this week, and I don't know if you guys can, maybe you guys can chime in or not, but Dorial Green Beckham.
Yeah.
Given the fact that Harry Douglas is out, and the coaches are, coming out and saying that they're going to get this guy more involved, he's already been heavily involved in the red zone offense. So I think Dorial Green Beckham is a good potential sleeper for this week. For his value, 5,100, might be someone you might be looking towards investing in for that low price tag.
Yeah.
Wait, 5,100? Come on now.
No,
I'm
not picking it. I already said this is someone I really like for this week.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was hoping he would be 5K, and then I would just be done with this. But now I have to find someone else.
God, who are these players?
Yes.
Wait. I got one.
I got mine too.
I'm gonna keep scrolling though, just in case.
Let me double check his matchup.
Lucky Whitehead, anybody, or Jake Stoneburner? Anybody into that market?
I saw Whitehead and I was like, he gets some play. I see him on the field at least.
Oh, I like 2 guys. It's
You
a
only
three-way,
get one.
boys. It's a three-way, boys. I think I'm gonna take them both.
You only get one.
And let me go first, because what if I have? So I have mine.
Okay, go.
Ready?
Yeah, let's hear it.
Stephen Bailey for the, St. Louis Rams. He's been getting some increased targets. He's against the Browns. Decent matchup. He's got end zone targets before, so Stephen Bailey it is 4,900.
Okay, so I'm gonna say the three that I'm thinking of. I like Brent Selleck versus Carolina, and I know that's probably not a good pick, but he's 4,700. And in the last game versus Carolina, he had over 100 yards, and Ertz was playing that game, so I'm okay with Brent Selleck, but that's not who I'm picking. I like Charles Johnson with the new news that Diggs is not a factor as much as we thought he was going to be. So Charles Johnson, I just like his build, and in the matchup, they could be turning that game into a shootout. So I think it's possible that he's an option. And the last player I'm going to mention is Devin Funchess. He sort of became a little bit more of a Funchess. Yeah, he's been I had mentioned there's Greg Olsen leading in targets with 45, and then there's Ted Ginn Jr. with 25, and then the next guy is actually Funchess, not their third receiver who's Corey Brown or Philly Brown or whatever they call him. So Funchess is another guy that I kind of like to show up, get maybe 50 yards, which is in this game pretty much all you look for. But I think I'm going to go with Charles Johnson on the Vikings.
So, say your players again, so I don't repeat someone that you guys already called.
Stephen Bailey.
Charles Johnson on the Vikings.
Charles Johnson. Okay. I will go with. Is he already? How much is he? Let me make sure how much. I will go with Brian Quick.
Oh, Brian
Quick on the St. Louis Rams.
Why are you choosing the same team?
Brian Quick last season put up some respectable numbers. In particular, he had one game where he had 20 fantasy points. He's been injured, and they've been sort of being very secretive about his status and not playing him. So I'm just hoping that maybe this is the game he comes out and plays and does well, and continues his campaign from last year. So I will go with Brian Quick.
I like my chances with Bailey, boys.
What if this is the week that Brandon LaFell doesn't play and Keyshawn Martin goes off? Can I pick Keyshawn Martin again?
You can.
No, I don't want
Definitely
Keyshawn Martin.
good.
I'm taking Charles Johnson.
All right. So that's it for our casts for Week 7 late games. We have a previous cast with the Week 7 early games if you check our YouTube or even on Twitch on the press barcasts. You guys have anything else to add to this stream before we sign off?
Follow us at FantasyLabrats on Twitter. Sometimes we post cool sleepers that we like and guys in a particular game that we like over other guys. This last game on Thursday, we pretty much said that we only wanted Lynch and we didn't want anybody else, and that ended up being a good call.
That was a pretty good call.
And we also take questions throughout the week there too. Twitter.
Yeah, we take questions on Twitter, and we also accept them at our Gmail, fantasylabrats@gmail.com, if you are of the emailing mindset.
Yep, and then make sure you also check out our YouTube page, subscribe to it, follow us on Twitch, and that's all I have. So, thanks for listening, everyone. I'm Nani, signing out.
Hey, before we go, can we get a 3-team high five?
High five!
High five! Yeah! All right, now you can send us out.
Lights.